So here's the question for you. What does the United States, Amazon, Wake Forest, this beautiful little baby here, this elderly couple, and Michael Phelps all have in common? I'll tell you, they're on the screen, yes, that's in common. I will tell you what they have in common. They all started with a dream. The United States started as a dream of a country that was with freedom and liberty and justice for everybody, not just a select few, and that was a radical idea at the time. Amazon set out as a dream to transform the way the world reads and subsequently the way the world shops. Again, a radical transformation. Wake Forest started as a dream of it being a diverse learning community that actually lifts up the human spirit. This baby, and in fact, all of you, when you were babies, started out as the dream of your parents to start a family. This elderly couple represents the dream of a long, fulfilling life together. And all of Michael Phelps' athletic achievements started off as his dream to become the most decorated Olympian of all time. So dreams are everywhere. They surround us. They shaped our country. Every business, every service, every brand, every relationship, and actually every one of us started as a dream. Which brings me to a foundational belief that dreams are actually the most powerful force on our planet. Much more powerful than the ocean crashing against the coastline of the Galapagos Islands, which is the picture I took here. I have another foundational belief, and for the students in the room, sorry to break the news, but there is no such thing as work-life balance. I think that's a gross oversimplification of who we are as human beings. It presupposes there's this thing called work, and there's this thing called life, and they're in about a 50-50 split. And of course, if one of them gets thrown out of whack, then your whole life gets thrown out of whack, because again, it's sort of 50-50. So I don't believe that there's such a thing as work-life balance. I believe a much more accurate depiction is that of life balance, of which, of course, work is a part. And think of a lifeboat. In a lifeboat, if you throw everything into a lifeboat, then it's going to sink. So you need to figure out what are the most important things that you're going to put in a lifeboat to enable you not just to survive, but to thrive. And for me, I have multiple really important components in my life. There are about 7. So there's work, obviously, but there's family, there's friends, there's my faith, there's my spirit, which is different, and there's philanthropy, which is a very important bucket for me. And I believe that each of these important components in my lifeboat, and also in yours, deserves their own dreams. So what I'm most curious about is why, if dreams are the most important or most powerful force on the planet, and we all deserve to have dreams for all of the different elements of our lives, why is it then that most businesses and most people, most of you in this room, will die full of potential? I'll ask the question again. Why is it that most businesses and most people will die full of potential? And the facts bear that out, by the way. Depending upon your source, between 80 and 90% of all businesses fail. And actually, most people, as they're later on in life or on their deathbeds, will readily admit that they did not live their lives to their fullest potential. So what I wanted to do, what I wanted to set out to, my curiosity stimulated me to actually start to understand, why is this so? Is there a root cause to this phenomenon? And more importantly, if there is a root cause, is there anything that we can do in our daily behavior to radically alter the outcome? And the answer is yes. The yes to both. So one of my dreams, one of my big dreams, and our dreams as a family, was to sail around the world. And we did it. In 2007 and 2008, we sailed around the world. We took our daughter, Elena, and our son, Bradley, out of school. I took a break mid-career, and we sailed around the world. And that was, as you can imagine, an amazing adventure. And what you're going to see is, for the next few minutes, lots of nautical metaphors and sailing imagery, because it's a voyage that clearly shaped a lot of my thinking. So what is the root cause to the reason why most businesses and most people will die full of potential? I believe it's because we're dreaming all wrong. I believe that most people and most businesses dream vaguely and dread specifically. So you have this vague dream of what your aspiration is or what your dream is, and then the dreads, the fears, the obstacles all paralyze you from ever achieving that dream. So let's use the sailing voyage as an example. If my wife and I had said, well, one day we'd like to go sailing around the world with our children, I guarantee you that it would never have happened. Because that sounds like a nice dream, but it's a vague dream. So all of the things like, well, what about taking a break mid-career? What about storms? What about the kids' education? What about the mortgage? What about the this, the that, the other? It would have paralyzed us from ever making any progress towards our dream. And that happens far too often across all of the aspects of our lives and all of the aspects of our businesses. So, and by the way, this is a picture. We were caught in a near hurricane for 3 days, and this is after the seas had calmed down. So if this is your picture of, of all of the risks associated with your dream, do you think you're ever going to do it? And the answer is no. So if you align to the fact that this really is one of the root causes, then we can start to think about what can we do to radically alter the outcome. And I think it starts with flipping this on its head. You flip it on its head and you dream, instead of dreaming vaguely and dreading specifically, do the opposite. Dream specifically and dread vaguely. So again, let's take the sailing voyage. So my wife and I said, we want to go sailing around the world with our kids, but we want to go when they're old enough that they can help, they're old enough that it can shape them in terms of the experience, old enough that they can remember it. But we also want them to be young enough that it's still okay to be with mom and dad. And we want them to be young enough that we're not messing up high school and boyfriends and girlfriends and you name it. And for those of you who have children in the room, you know that's actually a very short window. So we said, okay, well, we need to go when Elena is 10 and we need to go when Bradley is 12. So that means we need to set sail in 2007. So what do we need to do in order to enable us to set sail in 2007? And we were so focused on this specific dream that we just dealt with the fears and the dreads and the obstacles one by one, as opposed to letting them build up and paralyze us from ever achieving our dream. So I think that's the first important step. It's dreaming differently. It's flipping it on its head. It's dreaming specifically and dreading vaguely. But that, of course, is not enough. You've then got to get highly intentional about that dream or those dreams. Because again, I start from a position where I think you should have dreams for all of the important components in your lifeboat. So I love the ladder of intentionality because typically the higher you climb, the riskier it gets. And so it is with many of our dreams. So I think the lowest rung on the ladder of intentionality is when you think about something. So you just have a thought, it comes in, rattles around in your brain for a little bit, and then most of the time it leaves and no one's the wiser. And so, of course, there's no intentionality there whatsoever. No one to hold you accountable to it or anything. Now, it's an important step because you're going to have lots of ideas come in and lots of dreams and aspirations come in, and some will stick. And those are the important ones because then you need to start climbing up the ladder of intentionality a little higher. Then you write it down. And now it has a little bit more weight, right? Because someone could read it and someone could hold you accountable to it. And by the way, that someone could be you. That's why we like to-do lists. We like to write out to-do lists and we cross them off because it makes us feel like we said we're going to do it and now we've crossed it off and we've done it. So now you're a little bit more intentional, but you need to keep going. Let's say you get much more intentional, a big leap forward when you declare it. When you declare it out loud because it's your word. Okay, it's your word, and now you're telling people about what your dream is. And I would suggest that if you're going to do this for the first time, that you do it, to friends and family, so at least you know the feedback you're going to get is coming from a place of support and not a place just to block you. Now, I think you're the highest rung of the ladder of intentionality when you not only are declaring it, but you're declaring it out loud in such a compelling way that you get everybody else talking about it. So then what happens? Two magical things happen. One is you start to feel accountable for your dream to all of these people. So all of a sudden you've ramped up your intentionality dramatically. But you've also done something really magical, which is you've involved a whole bunch of people, a whole community in your dream that helps lift you up to achieve it. JFK was a great example of this. He had a very specific dream that he wanted us to get to the moon and send somebody to the moon and bring them safely back to Earth. And that was a very important piece of that, it was to bring someone safely back to Earth, because at the time there were lots of countries that would have happily just sent someone to the moon and left them there. And so he declared, we're going to send someone, so it was a very specific dream. We're going to send someone to the moon, we're going to bring them back safely to Earth, and we're going to do it within the next decade. And we didn't have any idea how to do it. But instead of writing a memo behind the presidential desk and sending it to his staffers, what did he do? He declared it out loud. He declared it in such a way that he got the entire world talking about it. And we obviously know the outcome, which is that we accomplished the objective, we accomplished the dream well ahead of schedule. So that too is not enough. So now you have your specific dream, you have a high degree of intentionality. The next thing that you got to do, which is difficult for us in today's world because we like everything instantly, is you got to plan and prepare well. So here we are. At this point, I think Elena was probably 8, and she is learning how to navigate and how to handle the boat in such a way that if my wife and I are swept overboard, that she and her brother can safely navigate our sailboat to the next destination. I took marine diesel mechanics so that if the generator or the engines broke down in the middle of the ocean, I'd be able to fix them. My wife took abandoned ship training. How do you safely abandon ship in that eventuality if you need to do that? She also took marine medical training. And while she certainly wasn't a certified surgeon, she was dangerous enough with a skin stapler to scare the hell out of the children. So we did a lot of planning and preparation. I talked before about Michael Phelps and his dream to become the most decorated Olympian of all time. Okay, so he had a very specific dream. He declared it out loud, so when he was heading off to China to try and achieve this dream, the whole world was talking about it. But he also had to put a strategy and plan and training regimen and an eating regimen and training team in place to enable him to achieve the dream. So planning and preparation is a critical component to achieving the dream. It also does something pretty miraculous. It builds your courage muscle. Okay, I think courage is a muscle, and just like any other muscle, if you don't use it, it will atrophy. But as you plan, as you prepare, as you declare your intentionality behind your dreams, you become increasingly courageous, because none of it means anything if you don't actually have the courage to metaphorically set sail on whatever it is that your dream is, and not just set sail, but venture out into the unknown. And I show this picture because on the one side, it's the first night that we set sail to cross the Atlantic Ocean. And we were terrified. So we're going across 3,000 miles of ocean, and we're not going to see land for about 3 weeks. We've done all of the planning, we've done all of the preparation, we're here, and yet we still had to summon the courage to actually go. And we were terrified. The other picture, and it doesn't really matter which is which, is the first night that we set sail to cross the Pacific Ocean about 6 months later. And you'd have thought we were going for a day sail around a lake because we knew we could do it. It was really, the fact that we'd gone across the Atlantic was really part of our planning and preparation to be able to continue to sustain the dream. So you got to summon courage. There are many other elements to courage. It's a fantastic word. You can pull it apart. But again, the more you do this, the more you wrap yourself up, the more you're going to build your courage muscle. I would also suggest that it helps you build the courage to keep going in the face of adversity rather than turning around. So if you're in a big storm, oftentimes the most dangerous thing you can do is actually turn back into the storm. And again, that applies not only to this voyage, but to the storms in each and every one of your lives. You've got to have the courage to ask for help and to give it. Asking for help is how we learn as children. It's how it unlocks so much of our potential, and yet as adults, oftentimes we don't ask for help. And we certainly don't always give it unconditionally. Oh, that's not my job. Oh, I'll get to it later. Let me just check these texts and emails. Ask for help and give it. Have the courage to be humble. Obviously, humility is the conduit to learning, whereas arrogance is the block to learning. I think you have to have the courage to listen and accept reality quickly. If you're out in the middle of the ocean and you can see a near hurricane approaching, we had to listen to what the sea was telling us and what the weather conditions were telling us, and we had to prepare the boat and the crew accordingly. I would submit that you have hurricanes in your own lives, relationships with a son, a daughter, a mother, a father, and you know there's a storm on the horizon, but you're not necessarily listening to it and accepting that reality quickly. And until you can do that, then you're not going to be able to achieve your full potential. Trust yourself and your team, and obviously the more you prepare yourselves, the better off you're going to be in this. I think you should have the courage to be optimistic. Don't be naive. See what's in front of you, but the more you can view it through an optimistic lens, I think the more you're going to be able to solve any of the challenges that you face. And then I think you really need to have fun, because at the end of the day, we only, as far as we know, we only go around once. So let's make sure that we have the courage, no matter what our age, to have fun. So as we look ahead, I would challenge each and every one of you in the room. Whether you are a college student who's getting ready to launch your career, I don't want you to be apathetic or just, hope that everything goes the way you want it to go. If you're mid-career and you're feeling stuck, or you don't feel like you're living up to your full potential, then this is for you too. But it's also for those who are just retiring, who've got still many years of adventure left. I would challenge you when you go home tonight to dream, but to dream in a whole new way. I would challenge you to dream specifically and dread vaguely for all of the components of your life. I would challenge you to be highly intentional about those dreams. I would challenge you to plan and prepare well. And I would challenge you to summon the courage to chart the course for your life and your work that all of your dreams deserve. Thank you.